Alright, what is up guys? Welcome to part 2 of my brand new Scratch Platformer tutorial series. By the end of this video, here's what your game will look like. Make sure you stick around till the end to learn how to do it. Let's go. So the first step here is going to be giving our player some super original, not generic art. So we're just going to make the square black and take away the outline of it. And then once you do that, we're just going to make it a little bit bigger and then center it up. Just like that. And once you have that, we're going to zoom in and then click on the reshape icon, and you're going to follow what you see on the screen to make rounded edges. So as you can see here, we're using the reshape tool, and we're just clicking on the areas right around the corners, and then clicking on the corner itself, hitting curved, and then delete. And that's all you need to do to make nice rounded edges for your squares. And this is also useful for making things like play buttons in other games. So then once we get this last corner finished up, we're going to go to your circle tool. And then we're going to set the fill to white. And then a trick here is to hold down the shift key while you draw a circle to make a perfect circle, just like that. And then once you get the size to your desired, size, we're just going to center it up, and then we're going to make another circle using the same trick we used with the shift key. Make the pupil for our player, and then we're going to center it up. But now we need two more costumes, one looking right for when we're moving right, and the other looking left for when we're looking left. And then we're going to call this first costume idle, and then just go ahead and duplicate it, and then make one called right, and then make another one called left. And then just move the pupil to the right for this one, and then duplicate the idle one, drag it down to the bottom and rename it left, and then do the same thing you did where you hold the shift key and then hit the arrow key to make it move in greater increments. Awesome. So once you do this, we can go back into the code tab, and this will make this actually mean something. So if you see here, we have our if key left arrow pressed. We're going to change x velocity by -1. Inside that, we're going to say switch costume to left, and the same thing for the right arrow one. We're going to switch the costume to right. And now if you go all the way up to the top of this script, you'll see where we have our change y by y velocity. We're going to drop that switch costume to idle in, and we're going to see how this looks. Cool. So now we see that when we move our player, we look left when we move left and right when we move right. Awesome. If you're enjoying this tutorial and want to see more videos like this in the future, please hit that subscribe button. It's completely free and it helps me out a lot. And I'm trying to hit 200 subs by the end of March, so every single one counts. Now let's get back to the tutorial. And now we're going to work on some art for our level. So we're going to just go once again, we're going to zoom out and then erase the outline for this, and then make it just that red line that means none. So then we're going to make our color for this green. We're going to give it some grass for our game. We're just going to slide our top one, which is color, over to the green, move our saturation and brightness, and then adjust the color like so. And then after you do this, we're going to make some art for our sky. So go to your backdrops, and then click on the rectangle tool. And then we're just going to give us a nice blue color for our sky, a nice light sky blue. So we're going to adjust the colors like you see on the screen. And then just draw a big rectangle for our sky. And that's a little bit too dark, so we're just going to make it a little bit lighter. Just like that. Now we can run our game and see that it's looking a lot better than that purple version we had, which was kind of ugly to be honest, but it's the first step. All games start somewhere, so now we're moving on to our enemies. We're going to make things like spikes and then pits you can fall into, and then that'll cause you to respawn. So go back to your level, and we're going to make our spikes here, but we're just going to draw them on the level so we have a good idea of where they need to go. So go to your rectangle tool, make that thin little line there, and then use your reshape tool, drag it up, and then hit the button that says pointed. There you go, you have your spikes. And we're going to make our spikes for now in clusters of 3. So just like that, you can drag it down, and then you're going to copy paste this 2 times to make 3 spikes. And we're just going to make sure they're kind of, they're lined up, I guess, just like that. And then after we line up this last spike, we're going to select all of them with the group select feature. Then we're going to copy, delete, and then go to your enemy sprite and then paste them in. And then we're going to type in x0 and y0 for our coordinates so they line up with our level. Just like that. And now we're going to go into the code for our enemy sprite. And then, actually before we do this, let's do a respawn feature for our player. So we're gonna make a new message and say, when I receive new message, we're gonna call this new message respawn, hit OK. And then we're gonna just copy paste this script that we have here, erase everything below the set Y velocity at 2, and drag it onto our respawn. So now we have a nice respawn feature for if we are touching our spikes. Stop the script, and then go into your enemy sprite and say when green flag clicked, and then a forever loop, and then we're going to say if then, and then we're going to write if we're touching our sprite 1, which is our player, then we are going to broadcast our message respawn. Let's see how this works. And cool, so now when we touch our spikes, we respawn at the beginning of the level, and we can clear them just like that to go on to the next level. Awesome. Alright, so next up in our tutorial, we're going to begin to work with level design. So go to your level sprite, and then inside that one, or any one, it doesn't really matter, you're going to make a new variable, and you're going to call the new variable level. Hit OK. And then in your code tab here, you're going to drag in a set level to 1 under the when green flag clicks block. And then underneath your go to x0, y0 block, you're going to drag in a forever loop, and then a switch costume to block, and then inside the little oval there, you're going to say level, and that's your variable. So switch costume to level, and we're going to do that forever. And then go to your costume tab for this level sprite, and then we're going to just duplicate the first one here, and then maybe zoom out a little bit there. We're going to go to our rectangle tool, and then our little color picker tool, and select that green color, and then make another rectangle for a platform. This is something our player can just jump onto, jump off, and more than anything, this is just me showing you what's possible with this platformer engine, and then your job is to take this and let your creativity run wild and do whatever you want with this platformer. And what I want to do is provide the necessary ingredients so you can cook up an awesome platformer game and then add pretty much whatever you want. The sky's the limit. So then you're going to do the same thing you did for the level sprite. Inside the enemy sprite, we're going to say switch your costume to the level, because we're not going to want spikes on level 2. And then next up, let's see what we have going on here. We're going to make a new sprite, and then this is going to be a sprite that helps us go to the next level when we touch the right edge, like all platformer games. So right here, just going to draw a rectangle on the right side of the stage here. And then we're actually going to take the fill bucket tool and then use our color picker tool to select it to the blue color for the sky, fill the rectangle, and then we're going to try to adjust the coordinates to x0, y0. x -7 is the furthest it's going to go. So then if you try to do it, see, it's just going to snap it back there. And then inside this one, we're going to go to our event tab, drag in a when green flag clicked block, and then we're going to do set ghost effect to 99.9. This is going to make it, for all practical purposes, invisible, but the sprite can still detect it, so it knows when it hits it, and it knows when it's supposed to switch to the next level. And then you're going to drag in a forever loop, and then you're going to say, if we're touching sprite 1, or our player, so if you're touching sprite 1, and actually we're going to go ahead and rename sprite 1 to player to make it a lot less confusing for you and me pretty much. So after you do the forever loop and then the if touching player block, we're going to say respawn and then change level variable by 1, just like that. Awesome. And then actually we're just going to make this a little bit slimmer so we can have it not jut out so far. So we're as close to that edge as possible. Just like that. And now I think we can test this out to see how it runs. So we're just going to jump over the spikes here, and then there, it switches over to the next level. And then, awesome, this is looking really good, like an actual platformer game. So now we're just going to run through this a couple more times to see if there's anything we need to fix. Yeah, so actually something I noticed is when we come out the other side of the level, we're still moving to the right with the same amount of x velocity. So under our when I receive respawn message, we're going to set our x velocity to 0 and see what this does for our game. And they're perfect. So now it's more of a reset when you go to the next level, because I don't know what you're going to want to put in this game. So if you want to put an obstacle right by the edge, you're not going to want to have your player just fly off the side of the screen and into your obstacle. So we want more of a reset to go on here. So then we're going to stop the game here. And then I think we're going to make another level before we wrap up the tutorial. And so we're going to add another, so just duplicate level 2 here, delete that little platform here, and then you're just going to make this, drag it over to the left here. And we're just going to make a simple pit for our player to fall into. And then stay tuned because I will teach you how to detect if we're touching the bottom edge. And it's a really cool secret, so you're not going to want to miss it. So after we adjust this to make our pit a little bit wider and make sure our both of our level pieces line up, we are just going to set these to their final little thing. And then go to your enemy here, duplicate this. We're not going to have any spikes for this one once again. Go back to your level sprite here. And actually go into your player sprite. And here's what we're going to detect if we fell into the pit. So at the bottom of your main sprite here for your player, all we're going to do is drag in an if-then else, no, not an if-then else, an if-then statement, and then drag an and block. And then we're going to say if touching edge, and here's the key, here's the secret ingredient to making this work. We're going to say if our Y position is less than a certain value, you're going to say, let's use -142. That's a good safe value here for our player. So we're going to say if we're touching the edge and our Y position is less than 142, we are going to respawn. Simple as that. So now we can run this in our game, go through the first 2 levels really fast, and then once we get to our level 3, we're going to see if our script worked for our pit. Awesome, so now if we fall in the pit, we can see that we respawn at the beginning of the level. And that's awesome. Alright, and that is it for part 2 of this tutorial, and if you have any ideas for next time and you want to see part 3, leave your ideas down in the comments, and I'll see you next time. Bye guys.